So given the highly unusual circumstances that we find ourselves in, I thought it might be a good idea to put some resources together and share some of my knowledge and experience as a physio, and maybe provide some useful information for people in pain who currently don't have access to help. It might also be of use for students or anyone else who has an interest in the body and the brain and how it reacts to common situations. Now, the resources are based on my knowledge and experience, but for your safety, I would add that this resource is not a replacement for seeking individual professional help. But if you are having any specific problems or have any specific questions, I'll leave my contact details for the end of the session. So I've been working on a plan to give you an outline of what I see as the important parts of injury management. But before I show it to you, I will just mention that there is a lot of information on it, and it is cyclical. So this means that we could potentially start anywhere on that cycle, and the consequence would be that we would move around from that as a particular starting point. As we cover more of it, hopefully that will make a little bit more sense. Probably the most familiar point to start at would be when a structure is exposed to a stress that is more than normal. So when the force, whether it be a compressive force, a distraction force or a twisting force, exceeds the force of that structure to tolerate stress, we'll get a change in the composition of that tissue. And if this happens in the body, it usually results in more cells than normal breaking down. Now, it's important not to get alarmed because cells breaking down is very normal, but here we are talking about cell breakdown which is in excess of normal. Now, the excess force will immediately send messages via nerves to the brain warning us that something might, but not necessarily, be a problem. Now, that might seem a little bit odd to say, but there are many circumstances where pain is not a damage indicator. But we'll discuss that more in a later section. Now, the cell breakdown that takes place initiates the production of what I like to call an inflammatory gravy, but we'll come back to that analogy on a number of occasions later. This gravy starts to build between 0 and 72 hours, and this is sometimes accompanied by a local bleeding between 0 and 6 hours if the injury is strong enough. That's then followed by the laying down of repair fibres, and this is called the proliferation stage, and this usually starts about 4 to 7 days in, with peaks at 3 weeks and lasting for about 5 weeks. At or after the peak of this phase, the newly formed repair tissue can be remodelled to look and behave like the tissue it's replacing. This process can go on for about 12 weeks. So if you have had an acute injury, it is important to be patient and respect what's happening at each stage, because it's the timing of these stages which dictate what you need to do at a particular time. And this forms the basis of rehabilitation of tissue injury. The quite surprising thing is that this process isn't always mirrored by what we feel in the way of pain. At this stage, the physical stress can fire signals to the brain, and the chemical environment which has changed can also fire signals up to the brain. We'll cover how the brain interprets the messages from the injury a little bit later. But in the next session, the logical thing would be to discuss what you need to do in each phase of the healing process. If you like what you hear, feel free to give me a like or share the session. Now, if you have a specific injury and would like a video consultation, you can visit our website on www.peak-wellbeing.co.uk or drop me a line on mike@peak-wellbeing.co.uk. During a video consultation, we'll take a history, we'll educate you, we'll work towards a diagnosis, and then provide you some bespoke advice and formulate a graded and progressive exercise program. I think that's about it for now, so we'll see you next time.